Mr. Maloof? Mr. Martinez? Mr. Pago?
Here.
Mr. Sanabria? Ms. Solar McKinley? Mr. Wortman? Vice Chair Fano?
She's here,
Chair Furray?
and I am here. That gives us a quorum, right?
With Ms. Fano, yes.
Yeah, where's Shelley?
She's going to walk in any minute.
Well, as soon as she walks in, we'll get started.
Okay.
Norman, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Fano is here, so we now have a quorum of 7. In the interest of time, Mr. Director, what I'd like to do is, I think we have some non-controversial things that we can do very quickly, and see if we can get at least a couple more, because the rest of it is important, and I want to make sure that. So what I'd like to do is then begin with the consent agenda, which is item, actually, I'm sorry, Pam, declaration of voting interest.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If any of the board members have a voting conflict of interest, they need to state it for the record, and you do have the potential conflicts list in your package. None shown, Mr. Chair.
All right, so at this time, we're going to go to item 8, which is the consent agenda. These are travel approval and ratification. Is there a second to that motion? Second, further discussion on it, on the consent agenda, which is travel approval and ratification. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes. Now, we're going to go to some of these other, no. Oh, she needs to, okay. Well, give me 5 more minutes to see if we get anybody else in here. Diane, we're going to take you up right away, but let's see if we can get 1 or 2 more people in here so we can get at least 9. So what I'd like to do then is just go to the approval of the summary minutes, which I don't think is controversial. Any discussion on the summary minutes?
I have a,
Change.
yes, I do, sir.
Final.
And it's just a small little typo, I believe. It is on page 5, paragraph 6. Commented.
That's the advantage of having an educator on your board.
Just a, some changes we need.
Any other changes? That one was duly noted. Any further discussion? Is there a motion for approval?
I so move.
Second.
Is there a second? Further discussion on the approval of the summary minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? General Counsel's report. Okay, we have one more. Is Maritza on?
Your call cannot be completed as dialed. Please consult your directory and call again.
Before we get to the Executive Director's report, can we get to the General Counsel report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been working on the typical ethics brief that we do each month for the board, and my intent for the last several weeks had been to talk about communications with persons belonging to regulated professions. My original intent was only to address communications with municipal financial advisors, but recent events have demonstrated 2 things. First off, I have a very astute and responsive array of individuals on this board, and my remarks today are going to be broadened a little bit to encompass another regulated profession. But first I wanted to talk about municipal advisors. I think many of you recall that back in 2010 we had serious concern about a proposed SEC rule that the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board intended to adopt a definition that would have made members of boards such as this responsible that issue municipal bonds, to make them, by definition, municipal advisors. and to require their registration with the SEC. The direction of this board, I filed a comment with the SEC in opposition to that rule and made the very strong point that members of boards such as this are in fact consumers of that type of service rather than actually being municipal advisors. Ultimately, the board did not adopt that rule. They did, however, issue a 167-page report on July 31st of this year discussing in great detail the municipal bond market and addressing to some extent their concerns related to municipal advisors. At some point, it's likely that there will be a rule of some sort addressing what activities are authorized by municipal advisors. Key to the MSRB's need for rulemaking was Section 975 of the Dodd-Frank Act, which, among other things, places a fiduciary responsibility on municipal advisors when they are making advice to boards such as these. And any person or entity that's providing such advice has to be registered to do so, and if they fail to do that, they are in violation of the law. What I want to emphasize very strongly to each of you is the importance that you exercise caution when you do have these sorts of communications. I would suggest that if you do have anybody approach you, that you invite them to make those presentations to a committee or the board in general. That way it keeps very clear that you are acting as the consumer of these services rather than you individually providing that municipal advice, and we want to be sure that we keep that a very bright line for your protection. Secondly, because of some events last week, I wanted to talk about communications with attorneys and how the Florida bar is regulated. I know that the attorneys on the board are very familiar with this. Rule 4-4.2 very expressly and clearly precludes communications being made directly between an attorney and a represented party. You have in your packet three things. One, you have a letter that I sent to local attorney who communicated directly with each of you. You also have a letter that he sent to me subsequent to my communicating with him, apologizing for that breach, and a highlighted copy of Rule 4-4.2. I think the content, of his letter, I won't really delve into in any great detail, but it really sets out and explains, I think, the purpose that the Florida Supreme Court has in adopting this rule, that it prevents overreaching by other legal counsel, and it also helps protect the sanctity of the attorney-client relationship. And so that's why that type of communication is precluded. As far as the ETC litigation goes, sir.
If I may, on that,
Absolutely.
on the issue of the attorney. If a banker happens to be an attorney and he talks to you, that doesn't include that discussion.
That's correct. Really what the rule addresses, Mr. Chair, is whether the individual, first is a regulated member of the profession, a member of the Florida Bar, and whether they're talking with you about the matter on which you're represented. If it's a banker talking with you about something that has nothing to do with the representation, that's not precluded.
Okay, I just want to make sure that it's not any attorney that comes to talk to you. That it's an attorney that is representing somebody that has something before
right.
MDX.
As long as it doesn't have to do with the representation, it's perfectly fine. One of the things that I wanted to be sure that all of the members were aware, on October 31st, our outside legal counsel and the litigation counsel representing ETC confirmed that we are going to have a pre-suit mediation on the 27th of November. They knew that 6 days before they sent the letter out to you, suggesting that mediation would be an appropriate way to perhaps reach a resolution of this matter. So we do plan to be in front of David Lichter, who is a Supreme Court certified mediator, starting on the 27th. And as always with this issue and every other legal issue, the executive director and I will keep you all up to date and informed on what's going on. If there is an accord reached at mediation, It's with the understanding that it does come back to this board for acceptance or rejection. So you will be kept in the loop on that, and you have the ultimate decision-making power in terms of whether to accept a settlement if one is reached. And with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Any questions? All right, if not, I'd like to welcome Mr. Holland, Mr. Sanabria, and Mr. Lasarte. And do you have any conflicts of interest that you need to declare at this time?
No conflict here, Robert Holland.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Okay, 1203 is item A. 9B, okay? Anything else? At this time, I'd like to recognize the very capable director of the Turnpike Enterprise. Turnpike Authority, the Turnpike Enterprise. Diane, you still here with us? The floor is yours, Ms. Cassetti. Thank you very much for being with us.
Oh, I appreciate the time the board is giving us today.
This comes under presentations and public comments at the beginning, citizens' comments.
Thank you. We want it to come before the board today, as we're doing certainly through the MDX process, but also in one of our sister agencies in Tampa Hillsborough, to talk to you about a project that we'll be undertaking that has a major effect on the Miami-Dade area, and that would be the widening of the Homestead extension of Florida's Turnpike. As you can see in the schedule that we have posted, we hope to begin widening of that beginning next year, with the first section being completed in 2016 and the second following on in after 2020. There is one section on there, the very last, that is not inside our current 5-year work program, but we intend to be widening approximately 11 miles of what we believe is the most congested area of the Homestead extension.
I'm sorry, would you repeat that again? Which is the most congested area?
We're going to have our first letting in the second quarter of next year, and you'll see as we get into the presentation, Chairman, the first piece will be from Caribbean Boulevard to 874, okay. And then the second will be north, about 2 miles north of 874 from Kendall Drive, almost to 836.
You back
come
up.
On, you're going to make me back up.
Does someone know how to back up?
I got it. Okay. I'm getting to be a technological wizard these days.
I think you need to repeat that for us.
So if you look at the letting schedule,
yeah.
The first contract letting is expected in April of next year, April 2013, with that contract finishing in 2016. And the latest contract you see in there lets in 2018 with a completion date of 2022.
So in other words, what you're saying is the portion from Eureka to 216 is the most congested one.
Well, no, I think probably the north of there, from Kendall north, is probably more congested, I'm told. But we're doing it in the context of 6 different contracts.
Bird Road, is that what you're saying? I'm sorry? From Kendall to right south of Bird Road.
If you say so.
I'm asking you.
It is. I know it as being Kendall to just south of 836. So if that is Bird Road, then yes. It is that contract that goes from 2014 to 2016. But the whole project doesn't really come together until 2020. If you look at the way that the schedule is out, those lettings stagger and then the finishing stagger. So the project won't be fully operational until 2020. And then there is the last piece, which is the last contract, which is 2018. That's not in our current work program. And that's the Southwest 288 to Biscayne that we hope to be able to pull forward as funds become available to us. So we're hoping to bring that into the 5-year work program if we can. But the bottom line is what we know is the Heft is a very congested piece of roadway. We know that we need to address the congestion. Today it operates at a service level of E during rush hour periods. It's congested, it bottlenecks, and we have speeds that are routinely below 35 miles an hour. So with this widening, what we know is we'll be operating at a service level C, which is obviously still not optimal. If we will have peak speeds of what we believe will be around 50, but the roadway will still be impacted by congestion. So what we've determined is there are very little places left on the HEF to continue to physically widen. There are still some small areas where we can, but as an entire corridor, we are going to become physically constrained. And so what we are suggesting and what we brought to the MPO is the concept of adding an express lane inside of the Caribbean Boulevard to 874 link and 2 express lanes from Kendall Drive to just south of 836. What we believe we are accomplishing with this is making good use of our construction dollars by pulling that infrastructure into the roadway today while the road is open, while we have the earth open, building that infrastructure and getting those lanes operational early enough on to help us in those out years manage what congestion will continue to increase as time passes. So again, from Caribbean Boulevard to 874 is 5 miles, and it will have 1 express lane in each direction, as well as additional general tolling capacity. And then from Kendall Drive to just south of 836 will be 6 miles of express lanes with 2 6 miles of roadway with 2 new express lanes in each direction. And there is a gap that will occur between 874 and Kendall Drive so that we can still access our Snapper Creek service area. So there is a break, and from our traffic engineer's analysis, we believe that that break will not cause any significant traffic issues. It's a lower traffic area. The traffic really picks up at Kendall Drive. So we believe that we will be successful in continuing to reduce congestion with this particular configuration. We will use flexible delineators to lane separate, as we have on 95, and it has been successful there, and we expect to have the same success on this project. For pricing, we will initially price it at 25 cents more than the SunPass rate on the general toll lanes. And then the express lanes will price as they do on 95 dynamically. So it will be a market-driven pricing model after that initial 25 cents. Trucks that are 3 axles or more will not be permitted in the express lane, but local commuter buses will be. And we will work through a process with the local bus services to do a registration fee for use of that express lane. And the lanes will be restricted to SunPass only. So we will not be doing any video tolling inside of the express lanes. We believe that providing this again continues to have the same success that I repeat on 95. It provides travelers with choices. Today we came down from Pompano. The road was perfectly open, but we got in the express lanes because we knew we had to be here by a certain time, and we didn't know exactly what would be in front of us. So for a quarter, it made all the sense in the world to hop in the express lane and know that we would reach this meeting at the appropriate time. We have learned through study of those who have used 95 Express that people feel safer inside the express lanes. They appreciate the ability to not be riding with large trucks. They appreciate if they're making a through trip that they're not necessarily in traffic that is attempting to enter and exit the roadway frequently. Obviously, it minimizes delay and offers that predictable travel time that I spoke of, and hopefully by reducing congestion, we reduce fuel consumption, which is still a very important part of everything we do, that we measure the environmental impact. As you know, we are all part with Secretary Pago and Executive Director Rodriguez. We sit on the statewide South Congestion Management or Regional Concept of Transportation Operations, where we're all looking at an express lane network in South Florida. These express lanes will fit into that and hopefully introduce the use of express lanes on other toll facilities in Florida as well. In addition, we continue to work through the FHWA value pricing pilot program that we are working through with District 4 and District 6, as well as the Turnpike, and with Metroplan Orlando. And that pricing program is to look at different ways to price roads to be successful in using that as a tool toward congestion management to avoid physical widenings. This is to give you a sense of beyond Miami and beyond 95, where the department is studying express lanes generally. and we are as far north as Jacksonville and as far west as Tampa, they are becoming a tool that we are going to have to use to manage congestion in physically constricted areas where we have high volume, high urban area congestion that needs to be addressed. So you can see that they are popping up everywhere, and I have a sense that you'll continue to see that that model be used elsewhere in the state. So we talk a lot about 95 Express, and certainly Secretary Pago can talk to you about that better than anyone here. But the basic premise is that it has been extraordinarily successful. You have seen increased travel times for both those who use the express lane as well as those who do not. So the overall corridor has performed better. Travelers are moving at speeds on average of 50 miles per hour, and it has benefited all income users. We talked to our traffic engineer, and they did a little quick survey. So for trivia purposes, we have given you the top 5 vehicles that use that 95 Express, and none of them are Lexus. So we thought that was important to point out. They're used by everybody. They're used by folks who need to go, whether it's to their child's baseball game or a doctor's appointment or a job interview. They're used by folks who just know they need a time-reliable trip, and they're willing to pay that small premium to make certain that they have it. So in summary, we will be implementing this with our work program that has been adopted, that begins next year. We are working as part of the heft widening very closely with Executive Director Rodriguez and Alfred to incorporate your 874 project in, which we think we have successfully done. The benefit of that, of course, to both of us will be reduced construction time for both of our customers and better coordination of that project. And so I think that has been another successful example of our ability to work together. We will incorporate a new tool that has not been used before. The state of Florida, again, will be the first in implementing this particular technology on a toll road. And so we are hoping that by giving you this briefing, you will understand what we're doing, and as you think forward about your own plans, know that certainly we're here to support your efforts, and we'll keep you posted on ours as well.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
You are welcome.
Can we ask you some questions?
Absolutely.
I've got 4 questions.
Okay.
The first one deals with the fact that you're presenting to us projects that are not within the Turnpike's authority. So, in other words, you're presenting it for the Department of Transportation, for example.
No, these are within our work program.
In other words, the Orlando project and the Jacksonville project.
Those are just, the idea of where they're being done. Well, that is one FDOT, so we are showing you, so you get a kind of a better, broader sense of the fact that Express.
Clear that it isn't the Turnpike authority, the Turnpike enterprise that is doing that. It's also the Department of Transportation itself.
Correct.
Okay. The second question that I have is, I noticed that for 5 miles from Dixie up to State Road 874, you're only having 1 lane.
Correct.
And that concerns me because of the safety issue. Mm-hmm. You know, when you have 2 lanes, and I'm an expert at this, my wife always drives on the fast lane slow, so that all the cars, as you know, pass on the right side in those 2 lanes, but they pass. Mm-hmm. When you have 1 lane, what happens with people who, like my wife, likes to drive fairly slowly? In other words, she's going at 60 miles an hour when people want to go at 70 miles an hour.
Well, we have discussed that, Chairman, within our own staff as well as with the Secretary, and we have looked around the country where there have been successful implementations of single-lane express lanes. So this particular part of the heft will be satisfied from a congestion standpoint by a single-lane express lane, and we'll still have the shoulder available in terms of dealing with safety issues. So what we're trying to do is preserve new capacity that is also priced at just the general use toll lane or the fixed rate toll. Yeah. But there'll always be the opportunity as congestion builds and demand allows for us to convert that other lane if need be.
Well, I'm wearing my FTC hat now, and I'm not going to continue on this, but I just want you to know that at the next FTC meeting, I'm going to be bringing that up, because I don't think the cost of going from 1 lane to 2 lane in a 5 mile is that a major an issue. And I think I think it's better to do it before we have the first accident, because somebody's trying to pass on the soft shoulder.
Well, it isn't a cost issue to FTE. It really is more of a choice issue to motorists. We want to make certain that we're also providing new general use toll capacity. So it's more to make certain that we're providing those who choose not to use the express lanes, who want to stay in the general purpose toll lanes, the ability to have some new capacity and relief through that. So it's customer driven more than anything,
Well,
but yeah, we'll look at it. We will look at it,
I
and we
want you
will
to know
be
that
prepared.
I'm not going to hold you up now, but I'm going to be brief. The third question that I have is, you say that you're going to be doing I-75. I mean, you're not you, but the department is studying I-75 north. And I know that that's one of the priorities that the secretary currently has. But doesn't that bring in the question of Palmetto Expressway?
Secretary?
Chairman,
Doing this in an appropriate way, I know that that's who has to have.
we are working hand in hand with Miami-Dade Expressway Authority as well as the District 4 and the Turnpike in order to advance a managed lane concept from 595 all the way down to just south of 836. So that would entail I-75 as well as the Palmetto Expressway.
Okay.
And it's part of, the MPO plan of a future managed lane network within the limited access facilities, including MDX facilities.
Okay, so then through Ms. Cassetti, my last question to you guys, I guess, is she talks about up to 874, but in effect, she should also be, I think, we should be talking about up to 876. And the reason, of course, is that really changes the whole, in other words, they're talking about doing the managed lane up to 874, which is down in South Dade County. But I think as it goes up to 876, how it ties into the Miami-Dade Expressway is also important. I mean 830.
Yeah, she has.
Okay.
We have 2 lanes. The Turnpike has proposed 2 lanes north of Kendall Drive for express lanes that will, basically be continuing the network of managed lanes, ultimately branching to 836 and north of 836.
And actually, Chairman, we are looking at the project to do the direct connect to 836. It's not in our current work program, but it will be.
That's my point.
We have our eye on that ball, not to worry.
Because it seems to me that if you don't connect it to 836, you're really missing a big part of your traffic.
And we understand that. It's just, again, this concept really was only born of our program this year. So we have put together what we know we can fund, and it's in our adopted work program. But we will have the partner to that, which will be finishing that direct connect and also creating an interchange, hopefully at Killian Road, to create some access there and some relief to local traffic at that point as well.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, Mr. Wortman, you're first. Mr. Maloof, you're next.
2 things. Norman. Yeah, I just pushed it.
Yes.
I realized afterward, after the first word came out, but didn't transmit. Okay. First thing, regarding the Homestead extension of the Turnpike near the southern section to the middle part, actually your predecessors did a very wise thing by having the bridges there that are already widened. Since for 2-lane road, there's already 3-lane bridges either side, so that should make it easier later. Okay, looking to the future now, regarding the managed lanes, similar to what we've learned like on I-95, where we put a rural interstate down the middle of an urban interstate, and we got the variance from the feds to have adjust the speed limit on that to have that higher than the other lanes. And right now, as we're going with the ITS transitioning, would be a good time to look at phasing in variable speed limits based upon the traffic flow speeds, accidents, and conditions, and adjusting if that lane is working much better. There's longer distances between weaving motions, ingress and egress, that can be safely higher, and it also attracts certain percentage ridership that way. Along with when there is an accident up ahead, you could phase down the speed, and working with the variable message signs when you're rebuilding it, please look to those ITS solutions and especially the variable speed limits along with the ITS signage with that.
We will do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Director, good afternoon. I wanted to request a copy of those slides. Can I receive a copy of that
Absolutely.
PowerPoint presentation? And for a number of reasons, this particular member is happy you're here today versus being in New Jersey. Is there any data that would support that level LOSB is not achievable with an additional express lane?
An additional express lane from Caribbean to 874.
I mean, there's a single lane. My goal is to see. Well, I would like to see as a member of the community, I would like to see if LOSB could be achieved on this road. I know you're going to jump. The goal, our objective is to move from E to C, and I'm wondering if there's some sort of barrier or some sort of threshold that needs to be overcome with respect to what it would take to achieve an LOSB.
Well, I think the express lane, when it is added to this project, takes us closer to that BC level. I'm not sure that it would be defined as a pure level of service B, but I think the goal of this, even the single express lane for the short-term years, is going to provide that B to C level. And I'm going to look over my left shoulder and see if Paul Y is nodding yes or no. See? We've talked about that. And again, we debated internally a long time the concept of 2 express lanes at that location. What we're really trying hard to do is balance the fact that we are currently a toll facility, and we provide some continued fixed rate toll capacity, new fixed rate toll capacity, while introducing this new concept. So I don't think you would get a huge argument from a pure operational technical discussion that 2 express lanes might be the way to go. But we also are trying to be cognizant of our customers. But we will talk to the traffic engineers back in Pompano offices and see what they can provide us and talk to you about what it would take to get to that next level.
My goal is not necessarily 2 lanes. It could be a complete retrofit of some sort of ITS that would allow the free movement to get up to level B. Okay. Whether it's an additional lane or some sort of improved
ITS,
technology that would allow the commuters to ride or enjoy receive the value and benefit of a roadway at that level, but also not deplete, as you said, the option of the non-express lane users from using, the free, the roadway, so that they don't feel that they're being, compelled or forced to use that express lane, although it's still a optionally, used lane, and they're not being forced into it. But it'd be great to see B on that road. I mean, I think it'd make a tremendous difference.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No.
Any other questions, Mr. Wu? Any other questions or comments? I just have one last thing. In a little while, we're going to get a report from the executive director, and he's going to tell us about what's going on in the negotiations that you're involved with about the back office for MDX and other expressway authorities. And I just wanted you to go on the record and just ask you, how do you think it's going?
For the new centralized customer service system?
Correct.
I think it's going well. I think that what I think is most notable, and I've been told that by my staff as well as others, the fact that Florida will be going to a single branded electronic toll collection system under SunPass is hugely important to our ability to be interoperable on the East Coast. OOCEA has agreed that they will convert their customers to SunPass, which we know they're compatible today, but under a different technology. and it'll take some of the pressure off the back office and transaction processing. So I think we've gotten huge cooperation there. I think that, the Turnpike is doing the best it can to support the efforts of MDX and THEA as they continue forward with some of their projects that are interim solutions to the long-term back office. But I think the teams are working well together. Executive Director Crummett and I met with our group in OOCEA's headquarters earlier last week. They're working hard. They've dedicated many hours to a successful outcome. I think the executive directors are getting along, and I think we have the same goals, which is to provide a very high level of service to those who choose to use electronic toll collection as their means of travel, and also to make sure that we are careful with our finances and we get the highest quality system to preserve our financial integrity, which is important to all of us.
Well, it's very encouraging. Thank you so much, and thank you for your time.
You are welcome.
All right. At this time, I'm going to invite Sonny Holtzman, who was our first chairman when MDX was created back in, I was going to say 1976, but I don't think it was 1976, it was 1996. We're not that old, are we, Sonny?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's delightful to be here. Madam Vice Chair, good to see you. Congratulations on your son's victory. And all some old faces, too. I wanted to talk to you today a little bit about Team Florida and the ITS initiative that I've just begun getting into, and I'm learning a lot about, particularly when I talk to your chairman. The importance of Team Florida to board members. When we first started MDX, I was appointed by the governor, so I said to the Governor, why me? I know a little bit about a lot of things, but I don't know anything about transportation. He said there's a reason for that. He says, those who go on the board, with the exception perhaps of Carlos Panin, who's an engineer, is to bring to the board not necessarily technical stuff, but bring your business, professional, and financial expertise to the board, and leave the driving, leave the technicalities to the executive director and his staff. He's going to need your help. So it's a hard line to make between the two, because as I listen to you, I see where you're getting into the other stuff, which is okay. But I think your first priority is to bring this level of policy making to the board and make sure that you have the best staff, and I think you do. There's no one better than Javier, and believe me, I've seen them all over the state. So, and the reason I say that is because you can help yourself by looking at other boards as well, and that's why we formed Team Florida in 1997 it was. We said, why, and we were the neophytes, MDX. There was Tampa Expressway, there was Orlando Orange, there was the bridges up in Pensacola, there was Jacksonville, there was Turnpike, there was FDOT. So we said, why can't we learn something from them? So we formed Team Florida. And the first meeting we had all the people from the expressway authorities there, the agencies, and nobody in the audience. And that has grown since then to a huge Team Florida enterprise. It's the largest perhaps in the country. Texas tried to do it, they failed. They're trying. Virginia's doing it. There's a lot following us. So it's an excellent place for you as board members to be able to learn more about transportation and your role as board members. Excuse me, Mr. Chair, this is on the spur of the moment, so, I grab a microphone, I get all excited.
I thought that only happened to politicians.
That's right. And I say Team Florida because we're inviting at our quarterly meeting, which we're having coincidentally, a joint meeting with the Florida Transportation Commission on January 24th and 25th in Orlando. I encourage you to come to that meeting. Some already come. I know, Norman, you're the representative. Others I've seen there. Gosh, you're always there. But especially the new members. I don't know all of you. I know Carlos from before. Consider going to these meetings. In fact, the meeting...
Tell us why.
Well, the meeting...
I mean, besides what you already said.
Well, here's what's going on. We have a special guest at that meeting that I'm on a board of the USDOT called the Program Advisory Committee of ITS. And that board, which I've been to several meetings already, is loaded with really expert scientists, researchers, professors, guys from Ford Motor Company and GM and Nokia and Verizon to try to get the communications part of all this done. Diane spoke of managed lanes and widening, but until we do something with what we have, we're going to run out of widenings. So that's the whole purpose of ITS. And we went to a pilot program in Ann Arbor earlier last month where we looked at vehicle-to-vehicle communication, vehicle-to-stationary communication. These are things that have been buzzwords and been talked about, but your chairman told me earlier, he said in the next 5 years, transportation and infrastructure is going to come into its own. And that's probably because, Mr. Chairman, it has to, because we are running out of space. And I'm on a subcommittee of that has to do with community outreach. We want to tell the people about this sort of thing, ITS. And the chairman of my subcommittee is Kirk Stoidel. Kirk is the director of the Michigan Transportation Department. He's also the president of AASHTO. And
explain what AASHTO is.
American Association of State and Highway Transportation.
Just explain what AASHTO is so that everybody understands the importance of AASHTO.
Well, AASHTO, well, all I know is it's the association of all the secretaries, we call them secretaries here in Florida, of all the secretaries of transportation all over the United States. And Kirk is the president this year of AASHTO. So fortunately for me, he's our chairman. And this subject can get so complicated for guys like me, he can explain it in lay terms. He's a transportation guy. So he figured if we're going to have outreach, let him come to a group that is going to try to understand all this. So he accepted our invitation to come to Team Florida. He'll be one of our principal speakers. And that's, again, in Orlando next month. I encourage you to come to that meeting. And I thank you for the time, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Holtzman is not only a person who was the first chairman of MDX and knew nothing about transportation. He's now on the, as he just told you, on the National Advisory Board put on by the President of the United States and the Secretary of Transportation. He's in the inner circle of the federal transportation people that talk about issues that affect you and me. He's also on the Cutter Board, which he hasn't talked about, and Cutter is the transportation think tank in Florida based at the University of South Florida in Tampa.
Correct.
And as you may know, or I'll tell you, the Michigan and the University of Michigan is like the lead place where all these things happen. And there's a lot of stuff going on, So when Sonny and I talked today, I took the liberty of inviting him because I thought he had something to share. And if you have the time, January when?
January 24th and 25th.
24th and 25th.
And by the way, the next Team Florida meeting after that is in Miami in April.
Yeah, so I think it would be good, especially for the new members who've never been, to go to the Team Florida because of the presentation that's going to be made by some of the leading transportation agencies. In addition to which, I really think that once we get past the fiscal cliff, you're going to see a lot of stuff coming out of Washington that deals with transportation.
That's right. Thank you.
That gives me a segue, and I promise you that we will be out of here way before 6 o'clock. But this, I'd like to just advance a little bit the commentary by the chair about ITS and No, this is not an action item. We're going to go to the regular agenda, and in my opinion, we'll be through that in half an hour. So we'll be out of here way before 6 o'clock. But I want to take this opportunity. First of all, Gonzalo, since you spoke up, to congratulate you for wearing a blue handkerchief today. And I noticed that Mr. Martinez is wearing a blue shirt, and that Mr. Malou and Gus have blue ties. I forgot to put on my blue tie today, but I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that you're all wearing blue, and I think that's wonderful. All right. I know.
I'm in a fight mood today. You want to?
All right. What I wanted to say, if I may, is that I was appointed to the World Congress of ITS, and the ITS meeting, as those of you that went to Orlando last year saw, is the largest gathering of transportation people on transportation issues, mostly dealing with automobiles. And so it's greatly backed by General Motors, Ford, Sony, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, and so on. The turnout in Vienna was mind-boggling. It was almost scary. I've never seen more Chinese out of Chinatown in my life, and it was the presence of the Chinese. There were 700 Chinese representatives at that ITS meeting. There were 300 Japanese representatives. It was the presence of Nissan and Volvo and all these mega companies, and the presentations they made are so mind-boggling that I'm coming here to tell you that the stuff that we're doing here in the next 5 years, we're going to be dealing with things that we don't even have on the screen. And I'm not talking about the direct feeding of electricity into automobiles, trucks, and buses. I'm talking about such things as cars talking to each other. I'm talking about such things as these zip cars being available and coming to you on a guided system, which is going to completely revolutionize the last mile. The logic of these people in ITS is this: Americans and most people in the world will not give up their cars. And so we're not going to solve this by just extending rail systems, heavy and light and everything. It has to be also solved by figuring out better ways for people to use their cars. And I think the stuff that's coming is so futuristic that and it deals with connected vehicle technology, autonomous or driverless vehicles, mobility on demand. In other words, you call up and say, I want a car delivered to such and such a place in such a time, and a car's delivered there. Wireless vehicle charging. In other words, the fuel of the future is electricity, and you're going to be able to get it directly on the road as you drive. Convergence of these technologies is just going to change the way we deal with highways. I asked when I came back, I was so excited about this that I asked Javier to ask HNTB to give me a memorandum on it. And I have a copy, which I got 2 weeks ago, of Jim Barbaroso of HNTB, who's the vice president of ITS for HNTB, based in, of course, Detroit, Michigan. And the ITS World Congress in Detroit, Michigan in 2 years is going to reveal things that are just, you have no idea what's coming. And so I would recommend, if any of you have an interest in this memorandum, just tell Maria Luisa and she'll send you a copy. I'm going to ask him to put it into a 2-page summary so that those of you that don't want to read the 10 pages can have a 2-page summary. But I really would like to recommend that you all look at it, and especially look at the technology convergence concluding page, which is only a half a page. And I'm not going to take your time to read it to you today, but I would strongly recommend that you read it. Okay, now I think we have one public speaker.
Carlos Garcia.
Mr. Garcia. Mr. Garcia, I'm going to make an exception and allow you to speak today. Let me tell you why. We have rules here. You did not follow the rules. Your petition came in an hour and a half after the cutoff deadline, which you know about.
30 minutes, sir.
I'm sorry?
30 minutes.
Oh, thank you for correcting that. The 30 minutes or 3 minutes is, we have these rules. So I'm going to let you speak today, but I'm just giving you notice that in the future, I expect for you to follow our rules in complying with
And I appreciate that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, and I will assure you that I will comply by that rule in the future.
You have 3 minutes.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Carlos Garcia from Rollback Tolls. I wanted to speak today to the board about the toll rate increases that were discussed here at the workshop a little over a month ago, which is something that doesn't come as a surprise, but is still somewhat, shocking to us and a lot of people that we've talked to as MDX embarks on informing the public about what it wants to do, increasing toll rates by 50% on 836 and the 112. We believe that the toll rate increase is completely out of touch with the economic situations of a lot of drivers in South Dade. Knowing that the open road tolling system allows for the capture of almost 25% more revenue without an increase, as has been witnessed on 874 in Kendall, we would ask that the board consider that in and of itself as if it were just kind of an increase, because you're going to be capturing tolls from a lot of people that didn't pay into the system previously. And, we feel from the people that we've talked to, and we've been on our group communicating this to the public through the internet and Twitter and Facebook, people are very, taken back by the fact that you want to increase toll rates by 50%. It's alarming to a lot of people. A lot of people are saying, where's the sense of it? Where is the option? You want to put forth two options of 16 cents and 17 cents a mile. Where is the option of no increase? At this time. And it's something that we feel that, a lot of the funds that would be used, would be captured from this toll rate increase if it was allowed to go forward, would go to projects that a lot of people are opposed to. That the fact that the funds are commingled on a lot of projects that people would not support. One of which is the busway express lane toll project, which, by the way, tomorrow there is a meeting in Pinecrest, which they're holding an open public discussion meeting about the busway. And, I'd like to, actually bought a flyer about it. I'd like to, leave it available if anybody would like information on it. It's tomorrow at Pinecrest Gardens. Pinecrest, Palmetto Bay, and Color Bay are getting together to have a public discussion about the busway. It's just an informational meeting that I think the board should be involved in. But we believe that this toll rate increase, getting back to the toll rate increase, is something that is going to be a lot of opposition from a lot of people. And we would ask that the public be heard, that you really make an effort. Tomorrow is an example of a public meeting that we would like MDX to have more of. I've been to a lot of the public meetings about a lot of things, and many people don't show up. And sometimes the people in the room outnumber the public in these public meetings. And I think that tomorrow is a meeting that I think would be something that the directors, I would suggest, would attend. But we would say suffice with the 25% increase of the revenue that the ORT would allow you, and make do with that.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. I allowed you to go to 7 minutes, but that's okay. But thank you for your presentation. We will be answering 3 of the things you just stated in the executive director's report. He will be answering those 3 points that you brought out.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much for your.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Now the executive director, if you would just answer those 3 things.
Can I meet with you for a second? I need to ask you a question. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, board members, I'm gonna go out of order in my report so I can respond to some of the comments made today. So I'll start the presentation on the town hall meeting tomorrow. And for clarification, this is a town hall meeting that's being hosted by the village of Pinecrest. Our staff, our consultants that are in a PD&E, project development environment process, will be there to make a presentation of where we are on the project, where we are in its schedule. We have not made any conclusions. Contrary to what Mr. Garcia said, there is no funding for any of this project whatsoever. When we held the workshop on October 2nd for the toll rate setting, we were very clear of the priorities of our projects, and the vast majority of those projects are on State Road 836 to complete those infrastructure projects on 836 east of 57th Avenue. That's where the bulk of the project, where the dollars will go to. We will be there tomorrow night. We will listen, and we will take it in as in any other PD&E process. When we have our transit modeling completed, because one of the steps that we want to complete is transit modeling. The only reason we're in this project was to find funding to improve the busway, to fund crossings at the major intersections so you can increase travel times for the buses. If our modeling proves that that does not make sense, the project stops. There is no other intent of it. We're not replacing US 1. We're not adding an expressway in lieu of US 1. The intent is to create revenue, generate revenue based on the demand, the latent demand that's on US 1. If people want to use it, they can pay for it. That money would go to improve transit. That was the purpose and need of the project. It maintains. It is still the purpose and need, but I need to clarify for the record, the toll rate increases that we're talking about in July of 2014 are for projects that are on our existing system. They're not for projects outside of our system. We have not prioritized those projects. And even with those rate increases, we're still very short from what we need. So I'll leave it at that. As far as the meeting tomorrow night, we did meet with the mayor and staff at Pinecrest. We did give them a presentation and answered many of the questions. They're philosophically opposed to anything that increases vehicular movement. They are more in favor of light rail, heavy rail, metro rail than anything that encourages vehicular movement, and we agreed to disagree on that. We weren't at any point where we can reach a conclusion and defend a conclusion because we're not there in the process. And we are following a federal process. We cannot prejudice the outcome, or we jeopardize potential federal funding for the process. So under that context, we will present tomorrow, board members, and leave it at that. Now, as far as getting the word out, and there is a memo in your folders that I prepared for the board members that lays out the steps that we're going to be following between the workshop that we held October 2nd. Yes, yes, sir.
It's very important to put up front to Mr. Garcia and others that this board has not concluded anything. We have not discussed anything. We're beginning a process of discussion. Mm-hmm. There are going to be 5 hearings. We're going to talk to every mayor, every legislator, every metro commissioner. We're going to be talking to a lot of people, and we got a long, long, long way to go. This is just, we're doing a due diligence process, so there's nothing, the statement that Mr. Garcia said that we're going to be doubling what? There's been no vote here. There's been no discussion of doubling anything.
Right. So the memo lays out that we have started the briefing of elected officials. Between now and December, we will brief every county commissioner, every member of the Metropolitan Planning Organization, the League of Cities, the Miami-Dade County Legislative Delegation, and the Florida Transportation Commission. We are going to be hosting 5 public review meetings. Public review meetings, no different than the town hall meeting. There will be one in South Dade, there will be one in North Dade, there will be 3 along the corridor. We're even discussing putting a webinar as one of them to make it available to those who can't attend in person. We are required to advertise for these public reviews 27 days prior and 7 days prior in major publications, and we are working with Florida's Turnpike to see if we can get it out to every SunPass user directly. The board also took up a toll policy at the workshop. We already had our first meeting at the Policy and Planning Committee last week to start discussing the elements of the frequent user or volume discount program and the CPI, consumer price indexing, on these issues. That policy will have to be approved by the Policy and Planning Committee and the Budget and Finance Committee prior to any action taking place at the board. Our plan right now is to have the board hold a public hearing, which will be advertised at least 30 days prior, here at the MDX boardroom on March 26, 2013. But leading to that meeting, there will have been at least 5 public reviews. There will have been meetings with all the different municipal and elected officials throughout Miami-Dade County. We're not just focusing it on 836 and State Road 112. So that I wanted to make clear to the board, and there is a memo to that in your packets for reference. If there's any questions on any of these elements, please contact me, or you can contact Terry Garcia, who is helping us in this process. The other thing I wanted to comment on, and this is outside of Mr. Garcia's comments, on the centralized customer service center. Our staff is fully committed to working with the Turnpike, OC, and THEA and Tampa Hillsborough on developing this centralized customer service center. There's only one goal, and that is to give the consumer a better experience. There's no reason why there should be various bills coming to the consumer. Last week, I went to a meeting in Tampa. Then Pamela, Leslie, and I drove to Orlando. And then we drove the Turnpike down to Miami. So in one day, we went through Tampa Hillsborough, Orlando Expressway Authority, and Florida's Turnpike, plus MDX. When we do this centralized or customer service center, that consumer would get one bill regardless if he's a prepaid customer or a video customer. And that's the goal. And it'll make it a lot easier for everyone. So that we're working on. Staff is going to the meetings every other week in person. They're being held in Orlando and Tampa and Pompano, or here in Miami. We're trying to rotate them. Same thing with the executive directors. We meet to talk at a policy level. The goal for the Turnpike, for Florida Turnpike Enterprise, is to put out a scope of work in the spring of 2013 to solicit bids from the private sector to do this, and this will be a private sector. I know that Diane had to leave because she was driving up to Tallahassee tonight, but I did want to commend her and her staff for working with MDX in resolving a lot of our issues with SunPass and bridging where we are today and where we want to be with a centralized customer service. We had a good session in Tampa. We reached a lot of agreement on many, many issues. We will be bringing to you a formalized agreement between MDX and SunPass, most likely at the next board meeting. We were trying to get it today, but it just didn't work out. But I wanted to thank her and her staff. And then finally, I wanted to update the board on a meeting that I had in Washington, D.C. that Secretary Pago was able to attend via phone. At the request of Secretary LaHood, they invited us to Washington to discuss the project that we have jointly been working on, Miami-Dade County, Florida International University, MDX, and Florida Department of Transportation. They wanted to hear more about the project and see how elements of the new transportation authorization bill can help fund the project. As far as MDX is concerned, a lot of the work on 836 is already moving forward. This board has already authorized staff to move forward with bundling of projects on the east side. Commensurate with the toll rates, we will advance those projects and lay out the groundwork for 4 lanes of traffic in each direction, better interchanges. Florida DOT is working on projects on the surface streets and safety improvements around the campus at FIU. Miami-Dade Transit already has a plan to run express buses in the interim, as soon as 826, 836 interchange is complete, to run buses on 836 using the shoulder. But ultimately, they want to run express buses from West Dade County into the Miami Intermodal Center and downtown Miami. We met with Peter Rogoff, the FTA administrator, spoke to him, and with Polly Trottenberg, who's the assistant secretary for the U.S. DOT, encouraged us to continue working and seeking different avenues for federal funding. I think the most telling of the meetings was a meeting that I had with Dwayne Callender, who's the director of the TIFIA program. It's an innovative transportation financing program. And MAP 21, or the new transportation bill, expanded TIFIA exponentially. There is no deadline for submitting applications. It's a rolling application. This is a federal loan process, so you do pay it back. But toll roads, especially toll roads on brownfields, i.e. MDX, State Road 836, are very, very, very good candidates for TIFIA loans. TIFIA loans are great because the interest rate is very low on them, subordinate to our senior debt. That makes it all the better. So what the director asked me to do is, once we had a plan moving forward with how we can pay back the loan, which basically is the toll rates, to submit a letter so that it isn't informal meetings anymore. Submit the letter, the application, bundle whatever projects we need to bundle, whether it's on a corridor or in an area, and then we can start formal discussions with the Office of TIFIA to see how they can help us finance our program. So it was very, very, very telling and encouraging. And he's well aware of the Expressway Authority. He's well aware of Miami-Dade County and Florida DOT. He's been working with Gus and me for years on the intermodals, the car rental facility, the port tunnel, and 595. So their staff are well aware of how Florida has used innovative financing in delivering its programs. With that, Mr. Chairman, I conclude my report.
Thank you. Jose?
I had a quick question for the executive director. What is the terms of those TIFIA loans typically? The payback period, is it
they can be 30,
very long, right?
They can be 30 years.
Yeah, thank you.
Up to 30 years.
Let me stress that. It's not only a 30-year loan. It's a 3% loan, and it's subordinated, and it's subordinated. Hello, bankers, it's subordinated.
Mr. Chairman, the interest rate is set depending on how you can pay it back and the level of revenues and how you can determine the revenues to pay it back. So the interest rate depends on the actual project and how you submit it.
I mean, it's a miracle financing, really. And the thing is that all of a sudden, and here's the key to it, before it was on a project to project. Now they say, listen, we'll look at the whole system, and you may have a preliminary project, but we're going to base it on the whole system. Wow. In other words, it's not just this building that you own. We're going to take into account the 100 buildings that you own, and we're going to make the loan based on your totality rather than...
And I forgot one last bit of information. We advocated for expansion of the TIFIA program in MAP 21, and that's a 2-year bill, so sometime next year, I think we're going to be right back at it with the next transportation authorization bill. TIFIA, from our perspective, is probably one of the best elements that's in the transportation bill. One of the things they did tell us is that even though there's authorization to finance up to 49% of the project, that informally the Secretary has said that he only wants to keep it at 33%, which are the existing rules, because they want to get as much money out around the country as possible.
See, that may change, and if we have time, and if we break up before 6, which is an hour from now, I'm going to ask you to pass a resolution backing Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, I think it is, North Carolina? South Carolina. That he wants to come up with a infrastructure bank, which is basically John Kerry's bill. And I think even though we're a small little dot in the ocean, I think every agency that's involved in transportation ought to be backing an infrastructure bank in the federal government. But if we have time, I'll bring it up at the end of the meeting. So now, are there any other questions of the executive director? If not, we go on. Is Maritza Gutierrez on the phone? She is not. You
yes,
are.
I am.
Okay, so Ms. Gutierrez, would you give us the MPO report?
I'm sorry, we have a really bad communication, so I don't understand what you're asking.
MPO report.
Okay, the MPO report, actually, the most important item on the MPO report last month was actually the turnpike item that they made a presentation today, and that was approved. And we look forward to the next month, which we get to approve, I believe, the work program for EFTA. And with that, it concludes.
Thank you very much. Any questions of Ms. Gutierrez? All right, we go to the treasurer's report now. Gonzalo?
Mr. Chairman, there will not be a treasurer's report due to the fact that CFO Marie Schaefer gave me a draft of the report 20 minutes before the meeting. I refuse to accept it, and I will not tolerate that kind of situation in the future. And when the budget meeting starts on Monday, I will set some rule to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
All right, thank you. The committee reports I'm going to leave for the end, if there are any further committee reports, so that we can get to the voting agenda, the regular agenda. So we're now on item 9A.
I have a question, not directly of the report, but basically the monthly statement. I had one question for Marie, if that's appropriate.
Please, absolutely.
Okay. I noticed that as a good thing. It looks like it's a good
Speak
thing.
into the microphone.
Yes, I just noticed. Okay, thanks. That this month we were about 10.5% over. I know some months before we were a little under, so this goes quite a bit in the right, it helps in the right direction. Is there any particular reason September was as good as it shows?
Yeah, actually, starting in August, we started to issue uniform traffic citations, and that's really what the overage of 2.3 in revenue is showing. From a traffic perspective, we're 2% above last year. We are the forecasted revenue because of UTCs.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Ms. Schaefer? All right, we're now on the regular agenda item 9A. Go ahead, Mr. Pam?
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 9A on the regular agenda is the procurement for work program number 83624.050. This is CEI services for the State Road 836 infrastructure modifications. This matter was endorsed by the Operations Committee on October 12th, and the upset limit on this contract is $1,738,711.95.
All right, any questions? Any discussion? If not, is there a motion? All right, it's been moved and seconded. Further discussion on item 9A. Sorry, go ahead.
And the successful bidder on that, it's noted in your air, is American Engineering Group is the number one proposer.
American Engineering Group. It's in our packet.
Correct.
Any further discussion? The motion's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. We're now on item 9B.
9B, Mr. Chair, is for design build services, again for the State Road 836 infrastructure modifications. This is for 836 East section. This matter was not taken up by the Operations Committee because we didn't have a quorum at that meeting, and it was passed on by the chair directly to the board. We're asking for approval of the Technical Evaluation Committee's recommendation for award to the number one ranked proposer. And
the name of that?
Is Condote, excuse me. Condote was the number one.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, at the request of the chair of the Operations Committee, Condote America is here to make a presentation if the board wishes to hear it.
I don't think it's necessary because that was done at the operating committee level. That's why we have operating committees. But there was no operating committee, so you want to hear the report.
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
Without a presentation. Correct.
There's a motion for discussion. Is there a second? It's been seconded for discussion purposes. All right, the chair recognizes Mr. Maloof, who is the chairman of the operating committee.
Mr. Chairman, we were short a member at the Ops Committee. And in light of the fact that it didn't come to the full board with a recommendation from our committee, I suggested to staff that the companies be available to answer any questions should any members of the board have questions during the process. We did that as a courtesy.
First of all, I think it's great that you didn't hold it up for another couple of months and that you passed it on for the full board meeting, and I think that was an appropriate decision on your part, Mr. Chairman. So, would the representative of Condoti, is that pronounced as how you pronounce it? Yeah, I'm not asking for a presentation. I'm asking for a representative to step forward so that he can answer the questions that are going to be asked. We may not need to hear from you, so what's your question? Just hold off.
I'd like to congratulate Mr. Muller. That was an excellent suggestion, making sure that all the representatives had somebody here to answer a question. That is really good forefront thinking on that issue. My greatest concern here is initially the price proposal is one of the primary concerns, and I think for some of you who have not been on the board before with me, I'm always concerned when something looks too good to be true. The difference in price here is very dramatic, of about $6 million. And don't get me wrong, I love saving money on any item. I'm the kind of guy who will go looking for that 20% coupon anywhere I go. But we are talking a dramatic difference of a significant difference between the lowest bid to the next lowest bid. And I'm always concerned that we're going to run into issues later where the bid is unable to be satisfied because it's so much lower than the others. Mr. Rodriguez, I've asked this on multiple other contracts. This is not the first time I've had this concern. Does staff see, we've been down this road before with other contracts, and this is no disrespect to the winning bidders potentially. Is staff concerned about that situation in this one as it have happened in the past? We are currently maybe in some type of litigation because of this, so I'm asking now to clarify that issue.
Board Member Martinez, that's a great question, and we were anticipating that you would have that concern. If you look at what the engineer's estimate is, it was $19.008 million.
Okay.
So the actual low price is 7% above our engineer's estimate.
Okay.
With that being said, we wanted to look at why it was above, what elements played into it. The biggest difference between the price proposals, I think one of the biggest reasons is the lane rental days, the length of time.
Okay.
Lane
Yeah,
rental.
I saw that.
The lane rental days. And I know that the representatives are here, which was a wise move by Operations Chair Maloof to discuss it, but we've also seen that the price of steel is starting to creep up, correct? And reinforcing steel is creeping up. This project, which is the civil work for ORT, has a lot of those elements in it.
Okay.
So that's why we saw the pricing. Now, the difference between the first and second, I guess they can answer. We did a sufficiency review, and we did not see any anomalies that would cause us any concerns. I guess you would have to ask their trade secrets of how they were able to come in roughly $6 million, below their competitor.
And I'm asking you to share any trade secrets, but you can you can give us.
And I was being facetious, by the way.
Just in case.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for having us.
Identify yourself for the record.
Andres Mendoza with Condote America, and our team here is Jacobs Engineering, our design build project. With regard to the spread between us and the second and third place bidders, I cannot give you a direct answer until I evaluate their bids, and that has not been made public to me. But we did have a very innovative design with temporary tolling and with a aggressive lane rental, shortened lane rental period. We do have a system where we limit the disturbance to the traveling public by having a traffic shift that keeps the traffic going westbound while we're erecting the wing on the westbound direction with a segmental approach. We worked with a fabricator during the bidding process that we're going to prefab most of the components in their shop and deliver them via tractor trailer and erect it on site. So we, would I like another $6 million? Hey, I'd love another $6 million. But it is what it is, and we're ready to give you a good project.
And again, my concerns, Mr. Chair and Mr. Director, is that I as long as the bidder understands that we are not, for lack of a better word, willing to do change orders very easily in this board. I think this board has developed a very strong reputation for that because of the strong contracts we write.
Board members, The one thing that I can say about the three proposals we've got, they've all done work, extensive work with MDX.
That's
They're
fine.
all familiar with MDX and its staff and our process and procedures, so I'm comfortable that they know what to expect.
Thank you for answering my question. Thank you.
All right, any other questions, Jose?
I asked this question on the phone. I couldn't attend it that day, and I think you answered it, but let me ask it again. The engineer's estimate was increased from $15.9 million to $19 million, and I think that had to do with the tolling. The lane rentals, excuse me. Then I see that there's a contingency release of 4.3. My question was back then is, when the engineer's estimate is recalculated and increased, in this case to 19, which I understand it makes perfect sense, why would the contingency release not be adjusted to reflect that? So, and it's just a quirky question, but
it's an excellent question. We did not issue a work program amendment to the board in the work program. So the difference between the estimate and the number in the work program that was approved by the board last January didn't change, which is why we need to issue the contingency release.
never adjusted, just the engineer's estimate was prepared.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you very much. That answers my question.
That's a great answer. Any other questions?
Just through the chair, just have one comment. In following the process in this particular procurement, I mean, it appears that perhaps some proposers that do work for our agency could benefit from some sort of workshop or tutorial or sitting with our staff during a presentation and and acquiring a better understanding on how to propose. For instance, and we want to work with companies that can bring us best value. Mr. Director, can you explain, just briefly touch on for the benefit of the board members, the 100 points that is available for just having a complete package?
Actually, that was proposed by Vice Chair Fano, who has been adamant about proposers having a complete package and filling out the forms. So we do give bonus points for a complete package and reward teams just for simply following the rules.
And in this particular procurement, how many of the proposers had complete packages? 1 out of 3. So, I mean, you could have picked up an extra 100 points just to have a complete package. So if someone's missing something, perhaps...
let's wake up.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Malou. Any other questions? All right, are we ready to vote? All those in favor of this proposal, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. We're now on C.
Mr. Chair, item 9C, this is a proposal to authorize a debt management plan for board approval. This is pursuant to Resolution 1202 that should be in your package, and this was endorsed by the Budget and Finance Committee on October 15th.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the board, the committee took this item up with chagrin because of the fact that since we have 3 outstanding rate swap agreements, that unless we post significant collateral, the ratings of the agency can be downgraded to a pretty much of a huge constraint to the way that we're doing things around here. So the number that we have to post collateral is what, Marie?
It depends upon market conditions, but the last was $81 million.
How many?
$81 million.
$81 million. It is not insignificant. So that depletes how much of our reserves?
That pretty much exhausts our reserves.
It's all the reserves, okay? So it's not a lightweight situation. So what I did was in the next agenda, Budget and Finance, I invited the 3 banks that are still holding our rate swap agreements to come and explain to us if they're willing to work with us in restructuring those swap agreements, okay? It's not obligatory, but most of these people also come back and they bid to be the underwriters in the future. So I would like to give them the opportunity to see if they're willing to cooperate with us and try to take this burden off the authority. So that's the comment. Thank you, sir.
Well, that's a wonderful initiative, and on behalf of all of us, congratulations on that. So with that comment, are you okay now on this? Reluctantly, yeah. All right, is there a motion on item 9C?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there further discussion on this item? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We're now on item D.
Mr. Chair, item 9D is a request to approve the renewal of two P3 legal counsel services. We have two firms in this pool, Greenberg Trog PA and Nossman LLP. This was originally procured for a period of 1 year, and that is up in December of 2012. This did come before the Policy and Planning Committee on November 7th and was endorsed to the board.
All right, Maritza, do you want to make any comments on this?
No, just to move it now.
Moved by Ms. Gutierrez.
Yeah, just to move the item now more than ever, this particular consultant is going to be used. I think that, this time period that the contract has existed, it really hasn't been used to its full potential, but it will be now.
All right, thank you very much. It's been moved and seconded by Mr. Wortman. Is there further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It carries unanimously. We're now on the presentations of committee reports, and I had asked each committee chair to give a 3-minute, very, very brief report.
Chairman Ferre?
Yes.
This is Yvonne McKinley. I have to disconnect now. I just want to request that they try and fix the calling in process. I have been on this meeting the whole time and struggling to hear what everybody has said because we really don't have a good connection, and I called back 3 times. So since all the action items have been taken care of, I will sign off now because I have to keep on working in my real job. But please have them try and fix the conference call-ins connection, because it's been a real mission to be able to understand and hear everybody. Thank you.
Member McKinley, they heard you loud and clear.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, now on committee reports.
We fix the other side of the connection so it doesn't sound like we're in the middle of a basketball stadium when they speak back to us.
Okay. Mr. Maloof, anything you want to say on your committee report?
Mr. Chair, essentially on our committee report, the active procurements speak for themselves as they were passed today, and those that were let are under review by staff. And I want to share with the board that the expression of interests for public-private partnership and unsolicited proposals is posted, and the authority has been receiving interest from outside parties to work with staff in coming up with creative ideas on non-toll revenue opportunities.
Very good. All right, Gonzalo, you have anything you want to add? If not, the only thing that remains is, as you may have seen, Senator John Kerry of Massachusetts had come up with a proposal of doing an infrastructure bank. One of the first things that happened on the Sunday talk shows that some of you may have seen is that the Republican hierarchy or the Republican directors, starting with Senator Lindsey Graham, came up with a statement. The leadership came up with the statement that he was going to be, that there were 2 things that he was going to be pushing hard. And that one was immigration reform, and the other one was the infrastructure bank. I really think this has been very, very well discussed in the press. I mean, we all know about it. But if someone doesn't feel comfortable in this, then I'd like to make a motion, and I'll pass the gavel on to the vice chair, that if you want, we send it to the committee for discussion and coming back with a report. Or if you feel comfortable, and I hope you do, that we just pass it right now and say that We want to go on record as being supportive of anything that helps the infrastructure construction of the United States of America, of either repairing or building in road infrastructure, and that we think that the idea of Senator Lindsey Graham and John Kerry of creating an infrastructure bank is something that we support as an expressway authority. Pam, is that within the purview of what?
Well, we don't have an actual resolution.
Well, you'll have to bring it back then for further.
If we can go ahead and draft it so that the
to
members.
memorialize it,
Yes,
okay?
sir.
And then why don't you just send it to the proper
Okay.
committee, and we'll take it up at the next board meeting. Is that all right?
Yes, sir. Thank
So
you.
we don't need a motion now.
Right. And Mr. Chair, I think it's very appropriate what you're saying, because those comments by the leadership on both sides talking about infrastructure, I believe is going to expedite the reauthorization. Instead of the 2-year transportation bill, go back to the traditional 6-year bill that has more financial stability, focusing on infrastructure. So I think there will be a lot of movement next year on that particular front.
All right, there are some announcements about the Budget and Finance Committee meeting, which is on the 19th, and then our next board meeting is on the 11th of December. Are there any other statements, or anybody want to say anything else? 5:32, there's a motion to adjourn.
30 minutes.
Is there a second? Everybody, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving to all.